Hello, and welcome to Schmidy's Guide to Fist DPS in Secret World Legends. This guide is targeted towards players who will be using Fist as their primary weapon, and will be going over a build and a short rotation for each other weapon in the secondary slot. There's two Fists that I think are really good right now. The first one is the Bladed Gauntlets, which give you a bunch of Fury when you start the fight, and then 2 Fury per second every second afterwards in combat. Super good. It doesn't matter if you're healing, doesn't matter if you're doing damage. This one is always a strong option. And then the other option that I feel deserves an honorable mention here is the Infernal Manglers. And those guys make it so that every time you gain 100 Fury, your next fist weapon attack within 5 seconds deals a ton of extra damage. That's nearly an elite worth of extra damage. And you should be gaining 100 Fury about every 20 seconds, even without the extra gain that you get from Bladed Gauntlets. So let's sort of get into it here. Obviously, we're looking to do somewhere around 4,500 DPS. That's the goal, 10 times our item power. And let's look at the core. So our build, the core for the Fist is going to be Thrash, Frenzied Wrath, Mangle, and Primal Instinct. And the goal here is to use Frenzied Wrath whenever you possibly can. And we're just going to be spamming Ravage whenever that happens because it does the most damage. And we can try to put Primal Instinct in there in front of it. So if anytime that we can put Primal Instinct in front of the cast of Frenzied Wrath, that'll allow us to do something cool called detonating the damage over time effect. So basically what that does is anytime that you add a damage over time effect to an enemy, whenever you reapply that same damage over time effect before the current one has expired, all the remaining time on the one that's currently on your opponent gets immediately cashed into damage. So as you can see, Ravage does by far the most damage over time that we can easily detonate, since Maim has a cooldown and costs energy, and Ravage just does the most damage overall. So whenever you can use Primal Instinct right before a Frenzied Wrath, you will make it so that your damage over time effects are doing 50% more damage when they expire, which is super good. Our core for the passive abilities is going to be Second Wind, gives us 4 energy whenever we expire Frenzied Wrath. Maul, which gives us another detonatable Afflict. And we have Potent Wrath, which is another Afflict. Can't detonate it, but it's still more damage, and we'll be using Frenzied Wrath a lot. About, I don't know, 2 times every 20 seconds or so, which is super good. Swallow Cut is going to be our blade attack, and then obviously we'll be running Spirit Blade with the Measure Twice, Cut Once passive. Super strong, makes it so that once you've gained a Spirit Blade with Blade as a secondary, it will stay a Spirit Blade forever. You no longer have to worry about the random number generator because you can always wait that long without worrying about wasting tons of energy. Then this is sort of our filler. Wild Nature is our filler when I don't think there's a better passive skill in the secondaries branch. It is quite possible, with the fact that you will get Spirit Blade up, and then once you've got it up in the first fight, it'll stay up forever, that Masterpiece is probably better here. But I don't know, you'd have to play around with it, and if you plan on using this build, I suggest you do so. So let's get into it. Basically, we're going to be using Mangle until we get to Frenzied Wrath, unless we don't have energy, in which case we use Thrash. And then if we have Primal Instinct, we will use that before Frenzied Wrath. If not, we just slam Frenzied Wrath and start using Ravage, which is left mouse button. So let's get it started. It's basically going to be Mangle, offhand, Mangle, and we just immediately have one. We immediately go into Ravages with extra damage. And we can use it again. You'll see we gain extra energy here again. Try not to burn too much in the way of our blade energy here. And you can see, if you're looking, those small hits are actually doing tons of damage when we are using Ravage because they are detonating effects, which you can see the tiny numbers do like 7,000s back in the background there if you check and see that. I think we lost a Primal Instinct there because I used too much Fist energy. We did. Alright, our blade needs some loving. Gotta pay more attention to that. That hurts our DPS a lot, the fact that I'm just burning that primal instinct before we get to use it. Okay, so let's check to see how we did there. So a little tiny bit underneath where we want to be, which is 10 times. Yeah, see, Ravage is our max hit. One of those tiny little crits that in the background that doesn't get the huge critical marker on it is actually our biggest hit. And I was making some silly mistakes, making it so that we could not use Primal Instinct right before Frenzied Wrath. If I had just used Primal Instinct instead of one of those mangles, I would have still gotten the ability to use Frenzied Wrath with the uptime, with the uptime of our extra damage over time effects occurring. So that made sense. So would have been able to have Primal Instinct up while also spamming Ravage, and that would have made it so we did the damage that we're expecting to do. So we'll see if we can do a little bit better as we go on here. If we go with... almost did a terrible thing. We just want to be able to use this build. I guess we'll just reset this each time if I remember. So this time we're doing Hammer. The same thing that I've sort of done in the other videos with this. It's just Demolish and Seethe with Outrage and Obliterate, or you can look at Anger Management as well. Both really strong skills. And let's get started. I actually like to start with Demolish, Seethe, Demolish here, and then 2 Mangles, and then we get right into it. At one point in time, this was like the most bursty build in the game. Still really good. And you'll see here that it's just such an incredible, like, it's really hard to beat the DPS that this brings to the table, even after the change to the Primal Instinct, making it so it isn't quite as nuts as it used to be. It's still just so good, because look at this, the ton of damage that we can do with no fist energy is insane. And we just keep going here. So basically what I've learned is 4 Mangles or 3 Mangles, and then 3 of your Thrashes will give you what you need to do the tons of damages. So I'm having fun, we should stop. Alright. Okay, let's see how we did here. Let's do this. Okay, yeah, it's about exactly where we wanted to be with our DPS. I ran that one about where we wanted to go. So Fist seems to be doing about exactly the damage you want to do, and I am not a great user of Fist. You can probably easily see some of the silly mistakes I am making with not using Primal Instinct at the right time, or allowing Frenzied Wrath to run a couple of seconds before I actually use it. So there's definitely room for improvement, along with solid damage, 10 times our basic item power. Our next one, is it blood already? It is. Okay, so this one is one of those big examples where blood is horrible as a secondary. Because of the amount of energy that you gain from just all the fist stuff that we're using right now, you cannot use Maleficium effectively. It just doesn't work. So instead, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using Savagery to try to, and targeting ourselves, to try to increase our Fury with the... I need to remember to start doing this first. Furious Inspiration. So we're actually going to be using Savagery when we are not about to use Frenzied Wrath. We want to use it right afterwards, so that way we start immediately gaining extra Fury. That'll allow us to run right into more Primal, or into more Frenzied Wraths really fast, so that we're not hurt as much by the fact that we're not using much energy for blood at all. And let's see how we do. So I like to just start off with this. You see that it actually makes it so that we can get into Frenzied Wrath really fast. Which is good because that's where we want to be the majority of the time since we're burning so much energy. And not doing too bad so far, actually. Could be doing a little nicer on those savageries, I think, making it so that we get an extra one in before we have to worry about stuff like okay, let's see how we did there. Okay, so 43-14, about where we expect, a little tiny bit under. I still make mistakes, and blood is just leaving energy on the table. I cannot make Maleficium work with this build. So, it just stays off the table. Or Maleficium, whatever. The next one is Chaos, Fist Chaos. So here, we're just using Breakdown and Reality Fracture with Rend Space. I do not think that the Breakdown passive is very good, so we're just using Wild Nature. And this one is a pretty easy build. We'll be stacking Exposed a little bit. So we're going to start off with Reality Fracture, 2 Mangles, and then Primal Instinct immediately gives us Frenzied Wrath, regardless of whether or not we started with any. And it's really easy to get rid of Chaos Energy, which is nice, kind of like Hammer. It just sort of goes away. And we just blew it again with our Primal Instinct. We gotta get better at that. We gotta stop going, oh no, I don't have enough Wrath. Better use Mangle, and then forgetting the fact that Primal Instinct would have just given it to us immediately. Because that's by far the thing that I am messing up the most right now. So it's something that I imagine is worth noting, since it does make a huge difference. Just sort of burn the rest of our energy here and call that a parse. I actually think I did a little bit better despite the mistakes that I was complaining about. We made less mistakes. We're learning as we go here, guys. Yeah, and that shows in the DPS about 1 minute. We did 4,600. Pretty good. We'll run into our next build here, which is Ellie. So, you've seen this one a million times now. We've got Mjolnir with Superconductor. We've got Crystallized Flame with the best passive in the game, Crystallized Blaze. Maybe not, but it just makes it do so much damage. And we're going to start with Crystallized Blaze, 2 Mangles, and then just immediately go into a Frenzied Wrath. And then we're going to try to get rid of some energy. The beginning rotation is tough not to burn energy on with Fist, is what I've noticed, but that's probably not a terrible thing. Okay, we got the important one off. Can we, like, shoot it? Don't know what's going on. I think it might be lagging a little bit. Anyway, we'll just sort of burn through our energy here. As you can see, it's actually kind of tough sometimes not to lose energy on Fist because it's just so much energy all the time that you're getting. But even with the weirdness and the lag and all the craziness, Ellie tends to be a really strong secondary. And yeah, we're doing fine. We're doing a little bit above our average damage with a weapon that I am not spectacular with. So let's run into the firearms. Gonna start off with shotgun. So we're gonna use Raging Shot. This is actually one of those builds where I think you can and probably should use Opening Shot, because with the amount of energy you're getting from fists all the time with 2 Frenzied Wraths every 22-ish, 25 seconds, and the fact that during Frenzied Wrath you're not using any energy, Shell Salvage is just a waste here for the most part. Like, the best thing it does is make it so you can maintain the same shell over and over. So we're just going to be getting Munitions Expert because we don't have Shell Salvage. We want to try to get good shells more often, and then Point Blank Shot because you're going to be in melee range all the time. So we're going to start with Opening Shot this time. Kind of a small difference from our regular stuff here. Couple of mangles to start it off, and then we just go to town. There we go. All the damage. So yeah, I think this is really good, and Opening Shot is just one of the best things you can run here. It's a really strong option. Nice little way to squeeze in an entire party-wide buff. And we'll run one more Primal Wrath, I suppose, and call it a parse. Okay, see how we did. We are going to be doing a little bit less damage because we're not using the craziest, bestest secondary ever, right? We're using a party buff, but let's see. Still respectable DPS, and we're running a party-wide buff, which is good. Remember, again, we don't have any exposed, and a lot of times some of the significant differences you're noticing are that I'm doing about 5% more damage just automatically on an exposed opponent, and I'd be doing 10% if the exposed effect is doubled. So like a lot of the hammer builds, I'm using Eruption. That just gives me exposed. So that's why a lot of those are so bursty and so huge. You'll see a lot of the damage we're not doing here made up by the fact that somebody in your group will be doing exposed, and then increased by the fact that you're running Opening Shot. So keep that in mind as we run off here. If you're seeing damage that's about 10 times your item power, that's where you want to be. So next we're going to be doing Fist Pistol. A little bit of a variance from what we're normally doing here. Whee! Skills. Alright, sorry. I need to remember to just go through this first. So we're using Kill Blind with the passive Focus Fire to make it so Kill Blind actually does real damage and also always gives us a matching set. Then just Dual Shot, because again, Dual Shot gets rid of energy faster than Unload, and we just need to get rid of energy as fast as we can, especially with a 3 energy weapon. We'll have energy troubles sometimes trying to make sure that we're not just at 15 wasting energy. So I like to start with Marked, and then like we're just going to ignore that gives us matching chambers for this point, because likelihood is we're going to get some matching chambers anyway. And we just want to burn some pistol energy while we have the chance there to make it so that we're not wasting it. Marked also stacks Exposed and Debilitate, which is a nice way to add some support to your team. And we just keep running our rotation here, using Frenzied Wrath whenever we can. Try to make sure we're not wasting fist energy. we'll just sort of run out our Frenzied Wrath here, run out some energy, and see how we did. Okay. Yeah, I like this build. This build is good. Again, understand that I am applying Exposed here, which lets us do significantly more damage. But again, it's pretty good. Like, this is definitely one of the higher damaging fist builds in my opinion, and you're still stacking Exposed. I think it's great. I do think that the shotgun is a little bit better because it's an easy way to sort of sneak in opening shot without just wasting a skill slot that you could have used on shell salvage. But either way, it works pretty well. And finally, we're going to be doing Fist Rifle. Again, Rifle not a great secondary, because a lot of it has to do with trying to spam as many grenades as you can, and we can't really do that. And you have to have a grenade here, or else you start doing damage to yourself. So, we're just going to start off with one burst fire, see if we get a grenade. We did. And then we're just going straight into our attacks here. Make sure we start getting to a point where we're not burning energy. And do try to not use burst fire if you have less than 7 energy, otherwise you may find it difficult to get that grenade launched, especially with the KSR, which is what I am running, before it explodes on you, and we don't want that. Gonna be a maximum immediately. So we'll just sort of run out our energy here, call it a parse. Okay, and again, I think we did fairly well there. Let's find out. Yep, doing nicely above 4,600, so I think there was a little bit of a learning curve there too. As many times as I have done this, it takes hours upon hours of beating on these guys to make it so you're not messing up your rotation, and then hours more to make it so that you're not messing up your rotation when you actually have to worry about dying. But yeah, I feel like this is a pretty solid one. It'll probably be the one that finds its way up on the YouTubes. So thanks for watching, and if you're looking to see DPS for the magic weapons as a primary, that's what's up next. I will see you there.